grabbing trash in Fallout, raiding the military base in Stalker, slurping up ammo jumbles in Warzone. We're talking about looting. Looting is a mechanic that you usually don't think about while playing. It's a means to an end. You want to grab your silly little items and put them on your silly little gun and go shoot some silly little Apex Legends. It's a quick little dose of serotonin in your gamer brain. But, as much as I love to be a little rat man and grab all sorts of items from my filthy rat cave, it's worth taking a step back and asking the question, why is it so much fun to grab all these tasty, tasty items? I don't think most of us would define looting as just picking up items in a game, because there's a connotative meaning behind it. You don't loot a fire flower in Mario, but when you go to a big old building and there's goodies in there, you would call that looting. So I posit that looting refers to either taking items left by the game in a big building or dungeon, or taking items as a reward for killing enemies, whether they be boss characters, standard enemies, or other players. It's not a hard and fast rule, but it generally applies to these examples. It's also worth noting what it is that you loot. Is taking an enemy's grenades in CSGO looting? Certainly not. I also don't think finding a Panzerschreck in Sniper Elite is looting, but that's because I think the whole game is worthless. On the other hand, I think grabbing trash that you can break down into weapons in Fallout probably is. An important distinction between looting and simply picking up items is the relative value of the item in question. In any Battle Royale game, even lower value loot feels so valuable because you know you're going to need it. Every time I think about leaving an ammo jumble unslurped in Apex, I immediately remember every time I've lost because I ran out when it was down to just 2 squads. In single-player games, after trudging through a large stronghold, you want to get a big reward for your efforts. Sure, it feels great to get an E-Tank in Mega Man after doing some extreme gamer parkour jumps, but going to Evergreen Mills in Fallout 3, taking down the Behemoth and all of the raiders guarding the outside, and convincing the merchant inside to give you the terrible shotgun is much more rewarding. Okay, so we know what looting is supposed to look like, but what makes it fun? Part of it is the reward that you get for the risk that you take. It's inherently risky to run into a building in a populated area in PUBG, but getting an armor and an M4 is an instant bit of relief. I survived that challenge, and now I'm even better prepared to survive another. BR games also tend to handle the risk-reward dynamic quite well because of the way killing other players and taking their items works. Everyone is going to try and get the best items in a game, so when you kill someone and take their stuff, you basically have yourself there a loot box that scales in value with the difficulty of the challenge. However, in single-player games, this sort of automatic vetting doesn't exist, so the developers need to decide the value of the challenge that you just defeated. The Fallout series as a whole varies widely across the spectrum of being good at looting or bad at it. On one hand, in Fallout 1, you go through a highly irradiated laboratory for the Brotherhood of Steel as a suicide mission. They don't expect you to survive. However, when you're there, you pick up some really good weapons and armor, and then, when you return, they're so shocked that you made it out that they let you into their base. Once there, you can help rescue another member, and as a reward for all your hard work, you get a set of power armor, which compared to your previous stuff, makes you nigh invincible. On the other end of the spectrum, you have Fallout 4. After finally finding the mercenary who killed your spouse and stole your son, you get his unique legendary pistol. Normally this would be really cool, however by now, you have almost definitely found a bunch of other quote-unquote legendary items from enemies that randomly spawn in the overworld. Kellogg's gun isn't visually different from other guns in the game, and you can still modify it, meaning that you're probably going to spend an hour or two looking for trash that you can break down to make the gun better. That's actually my main gripe with Fallout 4 and 76 over the other games. I actually don't want to spend my whole game juggling inventory management for different pieces of trash because I'm 4 screws short of a cool weapon mod that I just unlocked the ability to craft. It's actually extreme level bullshit that I have to make the gameplay decision to either drop a gun that I found from an enemy that looks cool, or drop the literal fucking garbage to make my existing guns better. On top of that, power armor, which was originally supposed to be a really cool late game reward for doing difficult tasks, is also craftable and extremely easy to find in both games, meaning that I'm often going to switch each armor piece out every 10 seconds when my old ones break, or like even more gargantuan amounts of garbage across the fucking wasteland so I can repair the cool matching set that I have. This brings me to another point, hoarding your items. Every gamer is familiar with this dilemma. Say that I don't want to break my epic matching armor set by going to some random settlement that needs my help. Say instead, I just save that armor set for later, and I go and do that in cheaper, worse armor that offers less protection, but I don't care if it breaks. All of a sudden, it's the end of the game, and I never even got to use the cool armor that I was saving for later. Or, when I do go back to put it on, it's worse than another set that I found later. Whether it's power armor, health and magic potions, high value ammo, or currency, we all have a tendency to hoard items to the end of the game because we're saving them for later. This dilemma counteracts all the fun looting is in the first place, because if you don't end up using your items by the end of the game, then what was the point of looting them in the first place? You just wasted your time picking up all that sweet rocket launcher ammo just to not use it on the final boss. I think this is an unintentional and unfortunate human response to a good gameplay idea made by game developers. A great way to balance your game and to convey the value of items to the player is by only giving them out sparingly. I know how important Kraber ammo is because it only comes near the end of the game, you can't pick up more of it, and the gun itself is absurdly powerful. The game doesn't have to tell me these things. It's immediately obvious once I have it in my tiny little gamer hands. Game devs do try to get you to avoid hoarding. Some games make it clear that you're in the final part of the game. They'll tell you that there's no turning back after this and ask if you want to continue and beat the game, or turn back and prepare. Other games make a big epic climax where you fight through a big gauntlet of enemies, but you have help, so you don't need to waste all of your best stuff just yet. Sometimes, games will just make it so that the best loot can only be grabbed in the final areas of the game. They essentially hoard the best gear for you, and force you to use it only after you've done everything else. Now, I do think that hoarding is a problem in games, but I'm not so sure that it's a game design problem. Instead, we as players should reevaluate our relationship with our items, and go a little hog wild with some of the nicer things that we have in our inventory. Sure, it would be nice to save the biggest gun for the end of the game, but wouldn't we have the most fun using some of that ammo to blast away the whole damn time? The fact that you might have a different answer to that question than I do is actually a good thing, and shows that the game you're thinking of has some interesting decisions for you to make that you don't consciously think of usually. So we know it's fun to get rewarded with good items after a hard challenge, and we know it's fun to get to decide how we use those items when we play. Well, what else is fun about it? I think an underrated aspect of looting is in the things we shouldn't have to think about: UX, UI, and sound design. You can immediately judge how good a BR game is on how fucking confusing the backpack interface is. PUBG and Apex are pretty good about it. In PUBG, it's easy to tell when I'm approaching the weight limit of my items and what good it does me to get a better backpack to hold more. In Apex, I can see the backpack slots that are forbidden to me until I do get a better one. I have no fucking clue how to use the Warzone backpack. I don't understand what I'm holding, what I might have to get rid of to hold more shit, and what to take from dead players. Every time I open the backpack UI, I end up staring at it dumbfounded until I get shot to death by another player. It's a nightmare. Another thing is how easy it is to take items. Warzone holds your hand by hoovering up all the applicable ammo and armor plates you might need so that your goblin horde never dries up. Fallout games past the first one have a take all button that lets you clean out a container, and in 3 in New Vegas you even get a different and better sound if you hit it. The sounds of looting should feel nice and crunchy, even if I'm just grabbing something lame like bandages. Look, in short, if looting is done well, you're probably not thinking about it. It's a way the player gets to interact with the world, and when you're really into a game, you're thinking more about how it's interacting with you. But in order to feel touched by a game and the experience of playing it, you shouldn't be frustrated by how much it sucks to take the items you need to progress. And if you're playing a really good game, taking those items themselves is going to add to that experience more.